Hello, and welcome to this talk on the morphophonology of the Mario brothers and their twisted reflections. I am Joseph Fruwald. I am a linguist, and you can find me on Twitter here. Let's come back to what we're dealing with. We're going to be talking about these four fellas and how we form their names. So who are we talking about? We're talking about Mario, the original plumber. We've got Luigi, his brother, just a green version of Mario, really. We've got Wario, who is the twisted reflection of Mario. And we've got Waluigi, who's the twisted reflection of Luigi. Some things to get out of the way before we get going. I am going to pronounce Mario's name more often than not as Mario, because that's how we say it in Philly. I don't know why. It's just always how I've said it. I'm, however, going to be saying Wario. Who cares? Something else to get out of the way. I will not be talking at all about the actual morphophonology of Japanese or English, because they are not relevant to me trying to work out a fun analysis of the Wa universe. Okay, so what's the puzzle here? Let me delete my little picture. The puzzle is we've got this fella, Mario, and we've got his brother, Luigi. And when we form the names of their twisted reflection for Mario, we still got the same Ario bit, but we've flipped around the M, made it a W, Wario. We've replaced the M with this W. For his brother Luigi, on the other hand, instead of replacing the L in Luigi, we add this Wa bit at the beginning. So this is the puzzle. Why do we replace the M at the beginning of Mario, but for Luigi we keep his whole name and add this morpheme at the beginning? So let's talk a bit about how we got here. How we got here. So what seems clear is that we had the name Mario, and then the clever people at Nintendo turned the M upside down to give us a W, and then we gave us the rest of the name Ario. But then for Luigi, when they need to create a twisted reflection of Luigi, we got Luigi's whole name and just copied the A from Mario's name, and that gave us Waluigi. So really, this A in Waluigi almost certainly came from the A in Mario to begin with. Now, this is what we call a phonological recutting, which is not unheard of in languages. So, for example, there's a very nice kind of dog called a Labrador. And you can crossbreed a Labrador with another kind of dog called a poodle. A poodle. And when you crossbreed these two, we get a third dog, looks like this fella. And what do we call this fella? Well, we blend Labrador and poodle together. We get Labrad from Labrador, and then we get Oodle from Poodle. Okay, but now let's introduce another dog into this equation, another kind of friendly dog called a Golden Retriever. I'll write that out in pink, why not? golden retriever. Right. And you can also crossbreed a golden retriever with a poodle. And we get their child, this thing, this friendly looking dog. Now the question is, what do we call this dog? Do we call it a golden poodle? A golden roodle, maybe? In fact, we wind up calling it a golden doodle. Golden doodle. We've got this D popping up in the middle here. Where did this come from? Well, it's the D that was originally from Labrador that wound up getting into Labradoodle, but then we got this phonological recutting where now the D is part of this doodle morpheme that gets added onto golden, and now doodle is a morpheme that means a dog that was crossbred with a poodle. So we have this showing up with other crossbreeds like Saint Berdoodle. Really nice case of phonological recutting. Something that we also saw here in Mario, Wario, Luigi, getting this A from Mario showing up over here as Waluigi. Now, we could just say, okay, solved it. Solved. Right? End of story. Case closed. But we're not going to stop there for a handful of reasons, one of which is the journey is not the destination. Or as we sometimes say in linguistics, you can have a diachronic explanation, but that doesn't necessarily tell you what the synchronic explanation is. So yeah, maybe that's how we wound up coming up with the name Waluigi, but how are people understanding it now? And also, what would happen if there were new Wa universe people made up, right? So another Mario Brothers character is Toad. And the question is, what if we had a twisted reflection version of Toad? Is that going to be Woad? Watoad? I don't know. And the diachronic explanation of saying, oh, we had phonological recutting from Mario into Waluigi can't really give us any insight into what's going to wind up happening here the next time around. And in fact, some have suggested that there's something more abstract going on, that there is a generalizable rule about how we form Wa universe names. So this person had the strong feeling that the Wa universe version of Daniel would be Waniel, with other kind of scary features about him. But the idea here being that to get the Wa universe of Daniel, we still do this W replacement. Okay, so something more complicated is going on here. So let's explore it. The first analysis we're going to explore is suppletion. Suppletion is the linguistic term for when you get one kind of thing in the input, you get another kind of different kind of thing in the output, and there's no sort of relationship between the two, right? Necessarily. So the suppletion analysis of these Wa names, this Wa formation, would be we have a twisted reflection morpheme that we add to names to get the Wa universe name. And in the case of Mario, we spell this out as W if your name is Mario. But if your name is Luigi, we spell this out as Wa. So this is just saying we have this morpheme, this twisted reflection morpheme, and you just get whatever realization of that morpheme depending on what your name is. Now, this doesn't get us all the way there. We still need to do some more work, because if you just add this W to Mario, you get Mario. Waluigi turns out just fine. So this just comes out as Waluigi. We need to do more work to get Wario to happen. Now, we've got this onset cluster, this Mario, which isn't great, right? It's not the best onset cluster. Maybe some language has it. I don't know. Now, fixing a bad onset cluster, that's the kind of thing languages do all the time. What we need to happen, or what we see happening, is this M getting deleted. So maybe this language says, don't have two labials in a sequence. We don't like that. And the way we're going to do that is say, when you have wum as the onset, just change that to a W. So if we do that to Mario, we get Wario. Okay. So this is a suppletive analysis, and it works. It's not exactly satisfying on a few counts. The first is, this is completely arbitrary what phonological shape the morpheme takes. So we've said if it's Mario, it's W. If it's Luigi, it's Wa. But we could have just as easily said, if it's Luigi, it's X Luigi. And there's nothing in this rule set here that says the relationship between these two morphemes, or these two realizations of this morpheme, need to sound alike at all. So there's that. But then also the next thing is exactly the same issue we had before. We have this rule set that makes reference to specific names: Mario, Luigi. What happens when Toad comes along? Toad isn't in this list. What's the morpheme going to be when we want to make the Wa version of Toad? It's not really answered by the suppletive analysis. So we're going to move forward and say, okay, we've got a twisted reflection morpheme that gets spelled out as something. Okay, maybe it's a W, maybe it's a Wa. And then we've got a series of morphophonological rules after we spell out these morphemes that change them eventually into Wario and Waluigi. Now, we're going to walk through two analyses. One is that we've got the basic phonological shape of this morpheme is W, and how we get this to work. And the other is that it's Wa. Now, why are we considering this Wa phonological shape of this twisted reflection morpheme? The first name we ever saw was Wario. So isn't it obvious that this is the default version, this Wa? And to that I would say we need to be careful not to take the first bit of data we see as being the default case, right? We need to, or when you've got data lined up in columns, to look at what's in the left-hand column as being the default. You really need to think through all the possibilities. So we'll start with this one. We've got the twisted reflection morpheme, which is spelled out as W, and there's in all cases, right? So there's no reference to what name is being attached to over here. So we're going to get Mario, and Luigi. Okay, now this isn't great. We've added the W to Mario and Luigi, but neither of these look like what we wind up eventually seeing in the output. We still got to get this M to delete. Okay, well, we talked about a process that could do that up here already. Maybe we don't like two labials next to each other. So I'm going to say the same thing happens here. WM gets spelled out as just W, and we get Wario. What about here with Waluigi? Well, maybe we don't like having two liquids right next to each other, right? So we wind up getting an epenthetic vowel showing up in here to break up this liquid cluster. So we could say maybe you don't want to have two liquids next to each other. So we're going to say when wool is right next to each other, we're going to spell that out as wa or wa. So if that happens, we wind up getting wa Luigi. And now here's an objection. Okay, wait a minute, this is weird. Both and wool are bad onset to words, and you fix this one by deleting it, and you fix this one by doing a parenthesis. This seems like cheating. Well, maybe it seems like cheating, but languages do this. Let's look at English, right? So English will simplify consonant clusters quite a bit. So sometimes you'll have a word like mist, and here this ST cluster can be a lot for people to deal with. So this winds up getting simplified as miss, right? That happens quite a bit. This T winds up getting deleted. Okay. But then the past tense of wait, you add a D to it. Oh, that's a really weird cluster. It's cluster. The way we fix that is we do a parenthesis. Waited. So it's already the case in a language that many of us are familiar with, that you get exactly the same kind of thing happening. Bad cluster. Fix this one by deletion. Okay, and fix this one by doing a parenthesis. This kind of thing happens in language, so I would feel pretty comfortable with this analysis of the twisted reflection morpheme. However, we need to keep thinking about it. Okay, so we've got the twisted reflection morpheme. What if the pronunciation of this twisted reflection morpheme, where the phonological shape of it isn't just a plain W, it's a wa, okay? So what happens here, and again, no reference to what the name is, okay? So we've got wa, Mario, wa, Luigi, okay? Wa, Mario, wa, Luigi, okay, this one, just adding the morpheme to it is already what it looks like on the surface. We can just make it be Waluigi with no extra machinery. While Mario, this is going to be a little bit tricky. We need to get rid of this M, and also we've got like too many vowels in here. What are we going to do? There are things that happen in languages, maybe we've got an intervocalic nasal deletion. That's a kind of thing that could happen. Or even intervocalic nasal deletion when the two vowels are identical, right? So we've got two identical vowels, right? So maybe if we say V1 consonant V1 just becomes V1, V1. That's a thing that's allowed. That's a writable rule. So we wind up with Wa Mario becoming Wario. And this is what it is phonologically. We wind up spelling it like Wario. And I'm going to put that in quotes to show that's how we spell it. And this is what it is phonologically. I kind of like this approach because then it gives me some machinery to say, okay, well, the reason I say Mario, but Wario, is because actually this is just a simple ah, and then this is two in a sequence, so we get some vowel coalescence. It's pronounced a little differently, Wario. Okay. So here's the second analysis, and I would say actually this wa analysis is going to wind up being, well, we've got some more gnarly stuff going over here on the Wario side, but we've got fewer rules that we need to be postulating happening, right? So over here we need a rule for simplifying another rule for simplifying wul. Here we just need something to make Wa Mario become Wario. Now, things might get a little bit more hairy. What if there's not just one morpheme that's coming out two different ways? What if there's a twisted reflection morpheme and, I don't know what. And the twisted reflection morpheme is getting spelled out as w, and this other kind of morpheme is getting spelled out wa. Bear with me here. When we're looking at the characters we know there's Mario. We know there's a Wario. We know there's a Luigi. And we know there's a Waluigi. But the question is, what if the relationship between Mario and Wario is not the same as the relationship between Luigi and Waluigi? And in fact, on this point, I would refer you to a really interesting YouTube video by Brian David Gilbert at Polygon.com talking about Waluigi. And he suggests that Waluigi, rather than being a twisted reflection of Luigi, is in some sense a projection of Luigi's desires and resentments personified, rather than sort of like just a strange version of it, right? So maybe I'm going to call this the resent morpheme. Okay, so what would this mean? It means we've got, when we add the twisted reflection morpheme to Mario, we get Wario. When we add the resent morpheme to Luigi, we get Waluigi. But then we could still add the twisted reflection morpheme to Luigi and get Wooigi. And we could add this resent morpheme to Mario and get Mario. Okay? Now, this is complicated, more complicated, in that we've postulated a new morpheme and actually hypothesized two names or two characters that have not yet been observed out there in the world. But on the other hand, this is also a somewhat simpler system, right? We know that we need a morpheme that will replace the first phoneme of the name, because we've seen Wario. So that morpheme will just do the same exact thing to Luigi and give us Wooigi. We know we'll need a morpheme that when we add it to the name just shows up as Wa, because we know about Waluigi. We do that to Mario, we get Wa Mario. Okay, so the number of exceptions, so this is plus more themes plus more characters. maybe not more characters, but unseen characters. But it's minus exceptions, which under some approaches to doing linguistics is preferred. And you know what's fun about this? With there being unseen characters, this is now rather than saying we're generating data we've never seen, we could say we are making a prediction. You know, we could really put our reputation out there and say, I predict that there are currently people out there in the WA universe called Luigi and Mario who we will observe one day. Okay, so just to recap, we looked at a diachronic analysis, which had some phonological recutting, to get the A from Mario into the morpheme wa, which then gets added to Luigi. Right? So this is the diachronic analysis of how we wound up getting Waluigi. Then we looked at the suppletive analysis. Where we just, you get W if you're Mario, Wa if you're Luigi, and the question is, the reason I don't like this one too much is there's a big question mark. What if you're anyone else? What if you're Peach? There's no prediction made. We looked at a single morpheme analysis. Right, where there's a twisted reflection morpheme that either comes out as w or wa. Both of these could wind up working. The wa approach has slightly fewer exceptions that we need to deal with. And we also looked at a double morpheme. A double morpheme analysis, where we actually have got a twisted reflection morpheme, which has just the shape w, but we've also got the personification of your resentments as wa. And this makes predictions. Testable predictions is one way of saying it. That's the sort of positive way of putting it. A more negative way of putting it is it overgeneralizes. Okay, so that's a bit of a look at the morphophonology of the Super Mario Brothers and their twisted reflections. I'm Joe Fruwald. Thanks for watching this video.